It's the kind of news that shocks even the most seasoned Hollywood insiders. Pierce Brosnan, the legendary James Bond actor, has left behind a fortune that is stirring strong emotions within his family. The staggering details of his estate have only just come to light, revealing not only the magnitude of his wealth, but also the unexpected ways it has impacted those closest to him. While Pierce Brosnan has long been admired for his charismatic roles on screen and his philanthropic efforts off-screen, few imagined the scale of his financial legacy. From real estate holdings in some of the world's most expensive cities, to investments in luxury properties, businesses, and a collection of priceless memorabilia, Brosnan's fortune paints the picture of a life lived in both success and careful planning. But with great wealth often comes great complications. Sources close to the family say emotions are running high, with reactions ranging from gratitude and relief to frustration and even tears. Disputes over inheritance, the distribution of assets, and the management of his estate have reportedly caused tension, making this one of the most talked about celebrity legacies in recent memory. The stakes are high, and even those who expected a windfall are surprised by the scale and the conditions of what Brosnan has left behind. For fans, this revelation adds another layer to the Bond legend. Pierce Brosnan's off-screen life has always been somewhat of a mystery, but the news of his fortune shows the impact of decades in Hollywood, both financially and personally. The question now is, how will his family navigate this fortune? And what surprising details might still emerge about the way Pierce Brosnan structured his legacy? This story is more than money, it's about family, legacy, and the unexpected consequences of a life lived under the spotlight. And for Pierce Brosnan's loved ones, it is a moment that evokes not just awe, but deep, heartfelt emotions. Pierce Brosnan has always been known for his charm, his impeccable style, and, of course, his iconic role as James Bond. But behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, few knew the full extent of the wealth he accumulated over decades. From blockbuster films to lucrative endorsements, savvy investments, and real estate acquisitions, Brosnan quietly built a fortune that would eventually astonish even those closest to him for years. Brosnan managed his finances with the same precision and foresight that made him one of Hollywood's most respected actors. Unlike many of his peers, who have faced public financial turmoil, he diversified his holdings across multiple sectors. Luxury homes in London, New York, and the Irish countryside were only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lay investments in businesses, art collections, and rare memorabilia, some of which have appreciated significantly over the years. Despite the impressive scale of his fortune, Brosnan remained remarkably private. He rarely discussed money publicly, preferring to let his work speak for itself. Friends describe him as deliberate and cautious with his finances, always planning for the long term and making strategic decisions that would protect both his family and his legacy. But even those who knew him best were unaware of just how vast his wealth had become. The estate planning process revealed surprising complexities. Brosnan's assets were structured carefully, with legal protections and provisions designed to minimize tax liabilities, while ensuring that his family would benefit. Yet even with meticulous planning, the sheer size and diversity of the estate led to emotional moments among his heirs. Reports suggest that the first time his family saw the full picture, reactions ranged from shock to tears, as they realized both the opportunities and responsibilities that came with inheriting such a fortune. When the full extent of Pierce Brosnan's fortune was revealed to his family, emotions ran high. For many, it was a mixture of gratitude, disbelief, and even anxiety. While some had expected to inherit wealth, few could have anticipated the scale and diversity of the estate. Luxury properties, business investments, art collections, and high-value memorabilia combined to create a fortune that would make anyone pause and perhaps even shed a few tears. The first reactions were emotional. Tears were shed, hugs exchanged, and laughter mixed with nervous tension as family members tried to process the news. Even those who had been close to Brosnan for years admitted they had underestimated the extent of his meticulous planning. While his reputation for discretion was well known, the revelation demonstrated not only his foresight, but also the depth of his care for those he loved. However, as is often the case with significant inheritances, emotions were not purely joyful. Some family members struggled with understanding the terms of the estate and how the assets were allocated. Brosnan had structured his fortune thoughtfully, creating trust funds, legal protections, and guidelines for the distribution of property and investments. Yet the complexity of these arrangements caused moments of confusion and tension. Lawyers and advisors were called in to explain the details, and even then, family members found themselves navigating unfamiliar territory. Beyond the legal and financial aspects, the emotional implications were profound. Receiving a fortune of this size is not just about wealth, it is a responsibility. Decisions about managing property, investments, and charitable contributions suddenly became personal matters that carried real weight. Family members realized that along with opportunity came accountability, and that the legacy Brosnan left behind was both a blessing and a challenge. With the initial shock of Pierce Brosnan's fortune settling, the family quickly realized that inheriting wealth of this magnitude was about far more than receiving luxury, homes, and high-value assets. Each property, investment, and collection carried responsibilities that required careful attention. The estate wasn't just a snapshot of Brosnan's success. It was a blueprint of his lifetime of planning, and the family understood that managing it effectively would require collaboration, knowledge, and respect for his intentions. One of the first challenges was understanding the legal framework surrounding the inheritance. Brosnan had arranged his fortune through trusts, legal protections, and detailed instructions for how assets should be distributed. While this ensured fairness and minimized tax complications, it also introduced complexity. Family members had to consult with financial advisors and lawyers to grasp the structure fully. Every property, from the sprawling estate in Ireland to luxury homes in London and the U.S., required oversight, maintenance, and strategic decision-making. The responsibility was immense, and it became clear that wealth was as much a duty as it was a gift. Beyond logistics, emotions continued to play a role. Feelings of gratitude were intertwined with pressure, as each family member recognized the expectations implicit in managing a legacy of this size. Discussions about whether to sell certain properties, invest in businesses, or donate portions to charitable causes became delicate conversations. Differences in priorities occasionally sparked tension, though the shared love and respect for Brosnan helped guide these decisions. At the same time, the family reflected on the lessons hidden within the fortune. Brosnan had not simply accumulated wealth. He had planned for security, continuity, and impact. His careful structuring demonstrated foresight, responsibility, and thoughtfulness, qualities that family members began to emulate as they assumed their new roles as stewards of his legacy. The fortune was not a free pass, but a framework for growth, requiring maturity, cooperation, and vision. As the dust settled from the initial shock and the family began to fully comprehend the scale of Pierce Brosnan's fortune, it became clear that this inheritance was more than money. It was a reflection of a life lived with purpose, foresight, and care. Focuses on how his family embraced the responsibility, navigated the challenges, and began to honor the legacy he left behind. The first step was organization. Family members worked closely with legal and financial advisors to understand every aspect of the estate, from real estate holdings and investment portfolios to rare art, memorabilia, and charitable contributions. Each asset had its place within the larger plan Brosnan had meticulously crafted, and respecting his structure became a priority. It was not merely a matter of wealth management, but a way to honor his intentions and preserve the stability he had worked so hard to ensure. Beyond the practicalities, the family faced emotional reconciliation. Receiving such a fortune brought immense gratitude, but it also demanded a thoughtful approach. Decisions about property, business ventures, and philanthropic efforts carried weight, requiring collaboration and respect for differing perspectives. Family discussions, once tinged with tension, evolved into constructive planning sessions focused on what would best honor Brosnan's vision. Philanthropy played a central role in their approach. Brosnan had always quietly supported causes close to his heart, and the family recognized that continuing this legacy was essential. Portions of the estate were earmarked for charitable initiatives, ensuring that his impact extended beyond the private sphere and into communities worldwide. In doing so, they discovered that wealth, when used with intention, could multiply its value not just in dollars, but in the positive influence it could have on others. Through this process, the family also reflected on the personal lessons embedded in Brosnan's planning, foresight, prudence, and compassion. His careful structuring of the estate was not about control. It was about creating a framework for security, opportunity, and lasting influence. By embracing these principles, the family learned that managing inheritance successfully is as much about character and responsibility as it is about financial acumen. As closes, it becomes clear that Pierce Brosnan's fortune is far more than material wealth. It is a testament to a life lived with care, creativity, and purpose. His family, though initially overwhelmed, has grown into their roles as stewards of his legacy, navigating challenges with wisdom and grace. In honoring his wishes, they ensure that Brosnan's influence continues, not just through his cinematic achievements, but through the thoughtful, lasting impact he designed for the people he loved most.